asking the questions that matter, lighting the fire to scatter, dancing with thoughts that flatter, building the dreams we chase after. Whispers are turning to thunder, echoes are pulling us under, fascism spark in the night, guiding us into the light, exercising the mind so bright, smart equal particles take flight.
Hello, hello, hello. Thank you for joining me here for yet another special edition of Tazisms, where we get caught up on the Epstein Maxwell file updates. Whew. And starting off strong. Take a look.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to... What's going on? Andrew, boo-boo, why are you screaming? Why are you crying? You've been arrested. Oh my God. Oh my fucking God. Oh my God. Oh my God. Oh my God. On charges of misconduct in public office. Oh. Right. No, I wasn't implying anything, Andrew. Exactly. What other charges could there be? You've definitely done nothing else wrong. What's that? The police are treating you like an animal. Of course they are. Are they beating you? Please tell me they're beating you. No, they're refusing to call you Prince. Okay, Andrew, honey, we've been over this. Not being allowed a horse in your cell does not mean we can challenge this on human rights grounds. I know, Andy, I know, it's sad. I know you really like clippy cloppies. Sorry, are you okay? Oh, Andrew, you wish Mummy was here because she was the only person who protected you from this kind of thing in the past. Oh. Would it cheer you up if I sent your birthday cake to the station? Yeah, it would. Okay, what cell are you in? They're keeping you in reception because you told them your best friend died in a cell. Oh my fucking God.
And just to clear some things up, no, Prince Charles has, not Prince Charles, King Charles, my apologies, has nothing to do with the arrest, the prosecution, no, nothing. Did King Charles continue to go on to London Fashion Week? Yep, sat right next to Stella McCartney. Had him a good old fabulous time. King Charles also stated that he would not be paying the legal fees or retaining an attorney for his younger brother, and the taxpayers will also not be footing the bill. But I need you to keep in mind that the aristocracy in England is more of ceremonial. The King Charles didn't sit there and go, "Hey, go arrest my brother on his birthday." I wish, but no. Also, what was the point of that Dear John letter? And what is the point of consistently reminding people that the U.S. is celebrating a milestone birthday this year, if we're not going to bring down justice? We said, as a country, no aristocracy here, no royalty. So why are we treating certain people, white men, like they are royalty? This is what we meant with the No Kings marches. But y'all are not good at the thinking and the comprehending at all. Let's get into it. This is coming from CNN. This is not over. Corporate America's Epstein reckoning gathers steam. A growing wave of business leaders has had their careers derailed after the recent release of millions of files linked to convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein. And this is what I mean by a reckoning. We have collectively been able to show corporations what we will and will not put up with by withholding our dollars. You know, the same withholding of dollars that y'all said wouldn't work. You know, they're not going to miss my little dollars. Collectively, they're going to miss all of our little funky $20 each. Because things add up. Did you forget about that? Corporate America initially saw limited ramifications after the U.S. Justice Department was forced to release some of the Epstein documents in late December. wasn't really late December. It was like mid-December. It was December 19th. But now, after subsequent disclosures have revealed Epstein's cozy relationships with captains of industries, the resignations are gaining momentum. And here's the thing, if you can do that to corporate America, you can do that to political America. I don't know why y'all have a fear of certain politicians, but not others. Y'all have no problem calling Black women, Black men, melanated people, politicians, all sorts of things. You sat back, kikied, and made excuses about Trump posting former president and former FLOTUS, Barack and Michelle Obama, as apes. But y'all act terrified to get rid of Lady Lindsay or Mike Johnson or Rafael Cruz. Billionaire Tom Pritzker on Monday joined the list of business leaders stepping down from power. The executive chairman of Hyatt Hotels blamed the terrible judgment he exercised in keeping ties with Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. You want to know the list, the ever-growing list. You can go back to the last two updates in this playlist, Epstein/Maxwell files updates. Pritzker's exit followed last week's resignation of top Goldman Sachs lawyer Kathy Rumler, who faced mounting scrutiny over personal messages with Epstein and gifts he'd given her. Those corporate leaders have not been accused of wrongdoing, but questions of judgment and their relationship with Epstein were enough to cost their positions. Exactly, especially for those that it was proven without a shadow of a doubt that they kept in contact with Epstein after he was convicted, after he had to register as a sex offender, after he had already served 13 months in jail. And what we're learning from the Andrew Mountbatten Windsor case thus far, the investigation, is that not only was Epstein blackmailing people, supplying underage girls to them, he was using them to get insider information. No wonder he was such a successful financier, because remember, he was not qualified for any of the jobs that he held except for creep. And there are likely more revelations and resignations to come, given the millions of documents spanning many years in the files released. This is not over. This is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to see more prominent people get implicated, said Bill George, an executive fellow at the Harvard Business School, who previously served on the board of directors at Goldman Sachs, ExxonMobil, Target, and other companies. The fallout in the business world from the recent Epstein files has been slow, but faster than in government. And here's the thing. People have traditionally acted as if being diverse, quote unquote, placating to Black people, brown people, would be the downfall of folks. When you're focused on diversity, equity, inclusion, and accessibility, you want to know what you don't have room for. You want to know what you don't have time for. Indiscretions such as this: criminal activity, the harming of fellow human beings, especially children. When you are constantly educating yourself on how to be a viable, positive member in society, guess what you don't have time for? Exactly, class. Some former business leaders now in the Trump administration have faced questions over their ties to Epstein. For instance, emails revealed that Commerce Secretary Howard Lutnick communicated with Epstein more than a decade after he previously claimed to have cut off all contact with the convicted sex offender. Although Lutnick's ties to Epstein have irked some on Wall Street, there is nothing to indicate that the cabinet secretary and personal friend of President Donald Trump Sr. will face any repercussions inside the White House, because y'all aren't asking for him to face any repercussions. Y'all were rolling over quick as shit. Y'all were sitting around talking about how you don't like the moves that Pam Bondi is making, but you keep forgetting, ignoring, if you will, the fact that you are we the people and you hold the power. She can't have a job if you don't want her to have a job. Y'all are quicker to get somebody fired at your local McDonald's for not properly salting your fries, or getting your McCafe order right, or the ice cream machine being broken for too many weeks in a row, then you are holding people accountable and swapping out the people in the positions that are not fulfilling their job requirements in politics. Y'all are quicker to want control and dominion over somebody's life that you have no say so in, that you legitimately do not pay their wages for, but the people whose wages you do pay, the people who you make sure have a cushy life, the people you make sure get that universal health care that they keep telling you we don't have the budget for, that you got universal health care money at home, you act like you're terrified of them. Markets respond faster than the political world because people act like they're afraid of their politicians. Y'all don't keep the fear in them like you used to. There used to be a time for quite a while in U.S. political history where politicians would do everything that they could to live up to their campaign promises because they knew they didn't have unlimited chances. If they didn't get her done, people weren't even waiting for the next election cycle. They would call for their removal right then and there. Okay, they was pulling up on these people in the grocery store. They was talking to folks' mamas and the pappies. They can act faster than waiting for the next election cycle, said Nell Minow, chair of Value Edge Advisors, which counsels institutional investors. I don't think there's a public company board in America that isn't doing searches through Epstein documents to make sure no one connected to the company is mentioned. Here's the thing. You don't have to wait for an election. Impeachment exists. And even if, your representation is up for grabs in this year's midterms, contact them. Tell them, hey, you sitting in that seat right now. You want to continue to sit in this seat? This is what we need. Y'all willing to negotiate everything else. You all have gone harder regarding somebody you don't like online because of an opinion that they shared than you are with this. Y'all went harder on Michael Vick than you are this. Y'all are more upset that children are staging their own walkouts, their own protest against ICE than you are about the children that were molested. And once again, let me remind y'all, because y'all keep having a bleeding heart for women that pop up in all of these cases. Women can be monsters too. What triggers an Epstein-linked exit? Minow said that there are a few third-rail issues that will likely cause immediate departures in the corporate world. The first category is if you lied about it. We'll call that the Lutnick rule, where you specifically said things that turned out to be lies, Minow said. So every white man everywhere should be stepping down. Lutnick has not been accused of any wrongdoing related to Epstein yet. Because there are multiple other people who kind of had a feeling that they might be mentioned in the Epstein files, not because they were up to no good, but when the first thing started to drop, when the Epstein estate was subpoenaed by Congress, and we got the first drop of emails, and people were like, oh, okay, I see what's going to be in these files. Yeah, I want to let you know, I didn't know such and such, and Epstein was close, but me and such, we was beefing, we was fighting, or we were hanging out a lot, so I might be brought up in there. Like when Whoopi Goldberg came out, was like, they brought me up in the files. I was in emails because they were trying to rent a plane to get me to a charity event. People were coming out like, yeah, I'm in there, like, this is what was going on. But to continuously lie about it and then try to make it seem like it's so innocent, if it was innocent from the jump, you would have just said something. It's one thing to have forgotten an encounter. I say a lot of times, there are a lot of people that I have met that probably do not recall meeting me, especially if it wasn't just a one-on-one, we got to sit down and kick it and chill, and vice versa. There's a lot of people who probably have met me that I may have forgotten, and that There's no tea, no shade. We're human. But just say, I don't recall meeting them, or, it's no razzmatazz, didn't stick in the smarticle particle. But when you flat out lie, you're instinctively covering something. A Commerce Department spokesperson told CNN in a statement last week that the focus on Lutnick is nothing more than a failing attempt by the legacy media to distract from the administration's accomplishments. What accomplishments? If you're going to use this as a narrative, we're going to need you to, what accomplishments? That's truly uh, pertinent information. Very much so. Like, tell us what these accomplishments are that everybody is derailed from. Because if you're saying that, folks are taking the attention off of that, put the attention on it. Wouldn't that make sense to you? Makes sense to me. If I believe that I'm out here doing the good work for the people, and somebody or somebody's is distracting from it, I'm going to pull your attention back around to what I feel you should be paying attention to. I think any good sane person would. Or maybe I'm the cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs one. I don't know. But found the DOJ is so bad at redacting because their focus isn't properly redacting that there was some information that slipped through the cracks, and somebody said, you know what, hold my beer. Let's go see what this is truly about. So let's look at the Epstein FedEx connection. See you in 2 and 2.
Now I understand why Pam Bondi is no longer releasing any more of the Epstein files. Because some journalists were able to get access to Jeffrey Epstein's FedEx account, and they found that it was used as early as 2024, and FedEx, as of a couple of days prior to their article, had deleted some invoices. The way the Ditch was able to get access to his FedEx account was by simply going through the Epstein files that were public. The password was just unredacted. The files that held that password are now removed off of the DOJ's website, but they currently still have access to that FedEx account, and within it is almost 100 different names and addresses, as well as including an ex-Israeli Air Force lieutenant colonel who now advises Alan Dershowitz. Now, those 2 invoices from 2024 that FedEx removed recently involves a shipment from Georgia to Plan D LLC, also in Georgia, and a separate shipment from Georgia to West Palm, Florida. That first shipment to Plan D LLC, that's actually the now dissolved firm that Epstein incorporated to own and operate his private jet, and suspiciously is also the same one that Trump used during his 2024 presidential election campaign. I have a sneaking suspicion that that second shipment that went to West Palm, Florida, might have been going to Mar-a-Lago.
This is why I keep saying, stop buying into, oh, justice won't happen. They won't do anything. Things will be done as long as you want them to be done. As long as you call for them to be done, and as long as we, the people, continue to dig and bring things to the forefront. This case is international. Let me repeat, this case is international. If you keep pushing and petitioning through the order of operations, eventually, and that eventually does not take long, it will be above us. And the United States cannot control the international judicial systems. I previously explained to y'all what the different avenues are, how they work, what needs to be done, all of these things. So it's just a matter of, do you want to get her done? Do you want there to be justice? Do you want people to be held to account? Because y'all understood utilizing the UN when it was popular to talk about Palestinians, Congo, Sudan. But now all of a sudden, y'all don't understand options when it's time to utilize those options for yourself. Lord have mercy. All right. Now let's get into this right here.
Between Steve Bannon and Jeffrey Epstein, released in the Epstein files, have ignited something of a civil war in MAGA world. In one message, Bannon suggests President Trump should be removed from office during his first term for erratic behavior. The Department of Justice also released a 2-hour video of Bannon interviewing Epstein for a potential documentary. This is Bannon asking about Epstein's time spent in prison in 2008.
You're telling me that during that day, you never had a moment you sat there and go, what the have I done with my life? I'm in a 6x9 jail cell.
You're suggesting I was sort of somewhat depressed, and how could this happen to me?
I'm not saying depressed. I'm saying a moment of awareness of how could I get myself into this situation?
No, I would just say how strange that this happens. Just, it's strange. People would either ask to borrow money or make some other types of comments about.
In
the beginning.
What were the comments? At the beginning, what were the comments?
It serves you rich guys right that you're here next to me.
There was nothing about your crimes.
No.
So all this rumor you hear all the time about people in prison that commit the type of crimes you commit, that's, you're saying in your personal thing is not true.
No.
It was all because you were rich.
Yes.
Bannon did not return messages from CNN, but said in a statement to the New York Times that his communication with Epstein was all done to, quote, secure 50 hours of interviews from a reclusive subject. For more on this, I want to bring in David Urban, former Trump campaign advisor and CNN senior political commentator. David, great to see you. You're shaking your head. I want to get to why in just a second. You know, the 25th Amendment reference from the Epstein files has caused some uproar inside the magosphere. It's dated December 31st, 2018, and it's a text exchange between Bannon and Epstein. And we should note the context is unclear, but Bannon says, going to blow him up right out of the box. White House has zero plans to punch back. Fort Apache with no cavalry en route. Jeffrey Epstein then says, in No Soldiers in the Fort, he is really borderline, not sure what he may do. And then Bannon replies, I think it's beyond borderline 25th Amendment. Now, we reached out to Bannon on this exchange and have not received a response, but people like Roger Stone and Marjorie Taylor Greene are speaking out. So tell me about why you were shaking your head and tell me what you were hearing inside the president's supporters.
Yeah, so, you know, John, you said also, you left out General Flynn and many, many others. If you go to Twitter and just look at, MAGA influencers, or just Google, or put in the Twitter search, Bannon, Epstein, see what comes up. There is not one supporter, not one MAGA person that's supporting Steve Bannon for a variety of reasons. One, it looks like he signed up to try to rehabilitate a person who committed horrendous sex crimes. You hear him in the interview with Jeffrey Epstein. He doesn't say, nobody in prison talked to you about being a pedophile. He doesn't call him out. He's trying to be polite to him, it seems. It's absolutely mind-blowing. And there's something like 19 other hours of tape that have yet to been released that Steve Bannon says that he's keeping because he was some sort of double secret agent and was going to really try to blow Jeffrey Epstein up. Well, Roger Stone and many others in the MAGA universe think that that's a crock. And if Steve Bannon is going to be out there trying to defend himself, he better get out there quickly, because the narrative does not look good for Steve Bannon at this point. It looks like he was out there to line his pockets defending a sex offender.
How do you think the president will react to all of this?
Listen, so Steve Bannon got a pardon at one point in time along the route here. We know that they were close. I am, from what I hear and lately is that there have not been that much communication with Steve Bannon and any senior officials in the administration in lieu of these revelations. And I can't imagine that the 25th Amendment revelation inures him to the president any more than he was far away, getting further. And I know that this most recent revelation is going to push that boat even further away from this administration.
I've said it before and let me say it again. White men have no loyalty. There is no honor amongst thieves. Okay, they may be thick as thieves because of the gluttony, but there is no honor. They will play all sides of everything, and they will profit even from their own crimes. This is why legislation had to be put out where once you're convicted of something, you cannot legally profit from it. You can't make money from it. You can't sell the likeness of things. Because there's an aspect that people are overlooking with all of these file talks and all of these side quest cases and everything. Epstein wanted to bring Trump down. Whatever the true reason why their friendship ended, it was extremely bitter on the side of Epstein. Now, there's been long-standing scuttlebutt, okay, word on the curb, that Epstein found out that Trump was a con man. And in Epstein's world, like, you could be a lot of things. But a thief, a con man, a grifter, that was a hill for him to die on, allegedly. But it has come out that quite a few politicians Epstein reached out to give information and advise on how to take down Trump. Which begs the question, what does Bannon know about Trump that he was willing to work with Epstein, not for a documentary, but to take down Trump? Let's continue. Coming from The Independent, Nancy Mace demands CIA release all files on Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. And before you go, Taz, doesn't she mean the FBI? The CIA works outside of the United States. In case you didn't know that. Once again, let me remind you all, this is an international case. And while the Department of Justice is moving at a snail pace, let's stop saying that the federal government as a whole is doing this, because the federal government, Capitol Hill, pushed for the Epstein Files Transparency Act. The federal government has been pushing to pull people in for congressional hearings. The federal government has been pushing for full transparency from the Department of Justice. Let's call things what they are and stop trying to package everything up into a little teeny tiny box and stick a bow on top of it. I think more of y'all should start contacting other countries, start contacting your UN ambassadors, because the victims are global. So even if justice isn't served in the United States, it'll probably be harsher someplace else. Haul them in. Have them hauled into court elsewhere. Have them extradited. And as much as folks are running for the hills right now, expatriating themselves, gone. South Carolina Republican Representative Nancy Mace has written to the CIA demanding the release of any and all documents it may hold relating to Jeffrey Epstein and his accomplice, Ghislaine Maxwell. Mace posted a copy of the letter she sent to CIA Director John Ratcliffe on X Tuesday with the comment, We're calling on the Central Intelligence Agency to allow us to view any and all records, documents, photos, videos, passports, and other materials they may have in their possession relating to Jeffrey Epstein and Ghislaine Maxwell. Congress needs to know what, if any, relationship the CIA had with Jeffrey Epstein and what information they're sitting on. And I don't normally agree with anything Nancy Mace. But here I am in the upside down, agreeing. She is absolutely correct. We need to know, given Epstein's drive and determination to be in certain rooms with certain people and to live out his full imposter syndrome, we need to know. Was he hobnobbing with Mossad agents? Did he cozy up to MI6 agents? Was he cool with anybody in Interpol? We know that he had a thing for getting cozy, just like Trump, with highly corrupt world leaders, notably despicable prime ministers. And I need y'all to also realize, just because Jeffrey Epstein was cool with one prime minister for a country does not mean he was cool with all of the prime ministers after that. And that even if a prime minister is corrupt, that they're on that level of corruption as the previous one. I'm going to need y'all to diversify your thinking. Stop making everybody a damn clone. Stop turning everybody into a freaking monolith. Classified or not, we want to see it. The American people deserve answers about whether our intelligence agencies had connections to a child sex trafficker. Mace's letter to Radcliffe alludes to a Freedom of Information Act request made by Epstein's lawyer, Martin Weinberg, in 2011, asking to see any records showing his client's alleged affiliation with the CIA, which was contained among the recent batch of files published by the Department of Justice in compliance with the Epstein Files Transparency Act. Weinberg received a reply from the agency on July 29th that year, saying it had been unable to locate any information or records, and that it could be neither confirmed nor denied whether a relationship existed with Epstein and the CIA, citing FOIA exemptions for classified material. Here's the thing, for those of you all that enjoy going the FOIA route, Epstein files include Maxwell files. Epstein files include Maxwell files. Epstein files include Maxwell files. Maxwell files include the entirety of the Maxwell files dating back to her father, her papa. The Jewish man who decided to change his name and create a new family after losing his family due to the Holocaust. The Jewish man who ended up, whether intentionally or accidentally, raising a very outwardly, very overtly racist daughter who's a pedo. And given that she was not the only daughter, but became the favorite child overall, having things named after her, made sure she was taken care of, I would wonder where she got her predilections from. Weinberg received a reply from the agency on July 29th that year, saying it had been unable to locate any information or records, and that it could neither confirm or deny whether a relationship existed between Epstein and the CIA, citing FOIA exemptions for classified material. Mace, who served on the House Committee on Oversight and Government Reform, also pointed to other newly released DOJ files that might hint at such a relationship, including a 2015 email from the sex offender to lawyer Catherine Grumler, in which he referred to a document that he said looks like a CIA drop. While we're calling for the CIA, all of these people that are resigning, especially Rumler, if somebody has a Juris Doctor, they need to be hauled in ASAP. ASAP. And given that the FBI under Kash Patel and the Department of Justice under Pam Bondi and Todd Blanche have claimed that they have thoroughly investigated everything, but are now reopening or opening investigations, When questioning these people, question them publicly and ask them when they were hauled into FBI and or the DOJ, and specifically what they were asked about. They want a spotlight? Let's give them a spotlight. Let them live under our spotlight. Just because we think they might be lying to our faces. The Congresswoman further referenced the late billionaire's past connections to influential people at home and abroad, including former CIA Director William Burns. At a minimum, the National Resources Division of the CIA would likely have had extensive contact with Epstein over the years, given its focus on debriefing high-level business people and investors who frequently travel abroad, do business with foreign officials, and who have links to restricted areas, which Epstein appeared to have, Mace wrote. All of this suggests not only does the CIA have information on Epstein, it should have a large amount of information on several decades and covering many issues. Given this information, we believe it is essential to Congress's oversight responsibilities and in the public interest to understand what relationship, if any, the CIA had with Jeffrey Epstein and what information, if any, the CIA has about Epstein and his activities. One of the many unresolved subplots of the Epstein saga is the question of whether or not the pedophile was ever employed as a covert intelligence operative, speculation only inflamed by the latest DOJ releases. Mace broke with President Donald Trump Sr. during what proved to be a turbulent 2025 for her by siding with Democrats to support the release of the Epstein files against his wishes. And remember, she was amongst a few women that he pulled into the Situation Room trying to intimidate. This is a whole lot of effort being put into what has been dubbed a Democratic hoax. If this is all about the Democrats, because the new talking point amongst MAGA sycophants is, well, it's 90% Democrat. Why are y'all fighting so hard against it? Why aren't y'all calling for prosecutions? Instead of saying, well, why didn't this person bring it out? Why aren't you saying off with their heads? If this is predominantly a Democratic thing, if this is predominantly a Democrat hoax, why aren't you saying off with everybody's head? Let's put them in jail. Because you know the truth. And you also see yourself, your papas, your grandpas, your daddies, your uncles, your brothers, your besties, your sisters, your mothers, yeah. Okay. Coming from CBS News Online, Epstein survivor tells CBS News how she was trafficked and assaulted. Juliette Bryant says she first met Jeffrey Epstein when she was a 20-year-old psychology and philosophy student in Cape Town, South Africa, who modeled part-time. Her first interaction with the late American sex offender came by chance when she was approached on a night out by a girl who offered to introduce her to a man who she said was described as to her as American royalty, which is standard for how the recruiters in Epstein's sphere were taught how to recruit girls and young women. She said she knew a man who was here, who was the King of America, and he was here with Bill Clinton and Kevin Spacey and Chris Tucker. She told me that his best friend, Leslie Wexner, owns Victoria's Secret, and it would be a very good idea for me to meet them because it could possibly help with my modeling career, Bryant told CBS News on Sunday. So we went along to the restaurant where they were having dinner down the road, and sure enough, there they were, Bill Clinton, Kevin Spacey, Chris Tucker, Jeffrey Epstein, and a few government officials from South Africa. Here's something. You know how Each time a victim comes forward and speaks and talks about, how they were introduced to Epstein, and those that were told different names that, would spark notoriety, would spark awe, they never bring up Donald Trump. Jeffrey Epstein had no problem letting people know that he was aligned with very successful people, but he was not out here name dropping Donald Trump. And Epstein didn't have relationships that did not benefit him. Whether it was for inside information, access to girls, access to money, something. He always had relationships that benefited him. So what was there for him to gain from Trump? Bryant does not accuse Clinton, Spacey, or Tucker of any wrongdoing, and she said in her interaction with the men at the table was brief, lasting only about 5 minutes. Also, I need y'all to remember Epstein was keen on making friends in high places. His imposter syndrome is one for the books. But the next day, she received a call from the girl who made the introduction, telling her that Epstein would like to see her modeling portfolio. Epstein said he thought I'd be great for Victoria's Secret and then left that day. But his office started phoning and arranging me a visa and tickets and everything, Bryant told CBS News. I didn't have money or anything, but they said, don't worry, they will deduct my expenses from the income I made when I was there, which is quite common practice in a lot of industries. A lot. What business stature from Trump and what business connections? I'm going to need y'all to think and stop giving Trump credit that Trump doesn't have. So, what business stature? Collecting bankruptcies? What connections? Trump tried to force and lie about connections. Trump was his own hype man to Forbes. He didn't even have an inside connection to call Forbes to get on the list. Trump has photobombed more pictures at events and paid for more tables instead of getting invites or being able to pick up the phone and call. So once again, what connections and what business stature? The desire for people to want Trump to be bigger than what he is weird. Epstein said he thought Bryant, a South African national, said she was surprised by how quickly Epstein was able to arrange her travel to the United States. Epstein, as has been uncovered and corroborated, had a whole network of people working to get visas, green cards, people willing to marry folks to have them speed up their pathway to citizenship. Yeah. The way he dotted his I's and crossed his T's to get what he wanted is frightening. They arranged for me to get a visa to come to America. It was like a visitor's visa, and they arranged these visas very quickly, which is unusual in South Africa. It's usually very difficult to get a visa here. And then basically within 3 weeks, I was in America, she said. Because they also, we have recently found out, they could speed up the process of getting people visas because they had connections and contacts with certain schools. So on the paperwork, it would appear that these young girls were coming for education purposes. And they already had people in place that had already given the okay to use their name as far as sponsors and, Multiple emails in the trench of Epstein-related documents released by the Department of Justice and reviewed by CBS News appear to show a pattern of Epstein assisting or receiving legal counsel on how to secure visas for young women, young girls, to come to the U.S., including from Eastern Europe. Well, yeah, they're only going to go to predominantly white places. He was fervently entrenched in eugenics, and it was no secret that he was racist. Earlier this month, Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk announced that the Polish government would create an analytical team to examine whether Polish children were abused via criminal networks connected to Epstein. This is how you handle something like this. Tusk also said links between Epstein and the entire pedophile circle and the Russian special services would be investigated. Bryant said very soon after she arrived in New York, she was told she would be heading to the Caribbean, to Epstein's private island. I obviously assumed it was for a modeling shoot, she said. We went to Teterboro Airport and they were waiting on the airplane there. And nothing was ever checked at any of these airports. They didn't check our passports, our luggage, nothing. And that's the thing. When they're talking about, we got to cut the criminals, they're illegals, and they're here, and blah, blah, blah. They're not at the places that they know people can easily slip in and out. And let me remind y'all once again, we have more than one border. Brian said her passport was taken from her on board and she was then sexually assaulted. As the plane took off, Epstein started touching me forcibly in between my legs and I freaked out. I realized this was not a modeling opportunity. I've been kidnapped, Brian told CBS News. They whisked me away to the island and then I was stuck there. They never arranged any modeling opportunities. I was basically completely conned. Not basically, you were completely conned and you were kidnapped. Brian said for the next few years of her life, she was trafficked by Epstein. Her account of where she first met Epstein lines up with a time period during which Epstein lent his plane to former President Bill Clinton as a part of the Clinton Foundation trip to Africa. And that's the thing. That is something that Epstein was able to get from Clinton by lending out his plane, which Epstein seemed to do a lot. As a seemingly friendly gesture, because even if Epstein wasn't there with them on the plane, his trusted pilots were. They could come back and tell him, oh yeah, I've noticed this about this place, and we can get details. And this gave Epstein access to increase his network of people to work for him, people to inform to him, girls together. Bryant was eventually compensated as part of both the Epstein Victims Compensation Program in 2020 and a separate settlement with JP Morgan Chase in 2023. And I needed you all to stop calling these payments hush money because these victims are still able to speak. They've been speaking. They've never been hushed. They've never been silenced. Are there people who decided to just be quiet and fade to the background? Yes, because of the general public. People wanting to ask them highly inappropriate and traumatizing questions. People wanting to see videos and photos and things like that before claiming that they would believe them because they're just trying to get their snuff them kink fest going. But hush money wasn't paid. Public flight logs reviewed by CBS News show that Clinton left for a 9-day trip to Africa with actors Spacey and Tucker on Epstein's private plane in September 2002, visiting Ghana, Nigeria, Rwanda, Mozambique, and South Africa. KFF Health News reported at the time that Clinton, Tucker, and Spacey were on a Clinton Foundation trip to promote efforts to fight HIV/AIDS and economic development. This is also why I say be very careful when somebody just goes, well, do you know such and such is in the files? Do you know what the files are composed of? The files are composed of a conglomerate of document types. There could be handwritten notes in there where it says, hey, Taz asked me to go pick her up eggs on February 23rd. So before you go, well, why was this person around and what? Let's act like, and in regards to the plane, equate that to the average person like their car. Have you ever been picked up by a friend or a family member and not known that the car that they picked you up in they borrowed from somebody else because maybe theirs was in the shop or they didn't have a car. Or they told you, hey, my car is a little small. I got this car. I rented it or I borrowed it from such and such, and y'all take a road trip, or they help you do something. No, I'm not making any excuses for anybody. I'm putting things in perspective for you. In a sworn declaration to the House Oversight Committee in January, Clinton said Epstein offered use of his plane for himself, his staff, and his Secret Service detail in support of the Clinton Foundation's philanthropic work between 2002 and 2003, which was not uncommon and highly documented that Epstein did. And this is another reason why the Clintons were up in arms regarding them being subpoenaed before Congress, because they have always and consistently been forthcoming with information, provided all the receipts that they could, answered all the questions, and they wanted it done publicly. But the way that it's been spent, and because people refuse to go past headlines and think, and people only pay attention to the most salacious parts of this story, this journey through trauma, things get lost in the sauce. Clinton denied ever visiting Epstein's private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, where a number of the late financier's crimes occurred, and maintained that he had not been in contact with the convicted pedophile for more than a decade before his 2019 arrest. And thus far, that has been confirmed and held true. Now, one particular person that has been heavily in the midst of these Epstein-Maxwell conversation is Lex Wexner. And coming from CNBC.com, Les Wexner says diabolical Jeffrey Epstein duped him, denies wrongdoing. Now, once again, not taking up for anybody, not giving any excuses, but this has been word on the curb for years, that allegedly Epstein had manipulated Wexner into making Epstein a power of attorney, that they had a weird relationship, that allegedly Epstein had caused fear in Wexner, like, oh, let me take care of this, let me handle this for you. So that has been out in the ether for a while. Once again, just full disclosure, so you know. Billionaire Leslie Wexner said during a congressional deposition Wednesday that he had virtually no social relationship with Jeffrey Epstein, but the House Oversight Committee's top-ranking Democrat called the claims bogus. I do not believe when Mr. Wexner says that he did not have a personal relationship with or a friendly relationship with the notorious sex offender, said Representative Robert Garcia, Democrat out of California, during a break in the closed-door proceedings at Wexner's home in New Albany, Ohio. Quite honestly, sidebar, I don't think any of these proceedings should be behind closed doors. We're past silence. We're past privacy at this moment. Now, I do realize that there's an order of operations to everything. Even with confirmation hearings, there's a portion that's public, there's a portion that's not. But generally, we see the public portion, then they go and ask more in-depth questions in private because, you know, national security reasons, etc. Garcia also sharply criticized the Department of Justice after hearing from Wexner that he has not been contacted by the FBI on Epstein-related matters. This is why I said earlier, as they pull people in, they need to ask. If the CIA question you, did the FBI question you, did the DOJ bring you in and question you? What the hell is going on? This is shameful, Garcia said. And for these people that are saying that they didn't stand by, that they are completely opposed to what Epstein and Maxwell did, especially what Maxwell was convicted of doing and is serving time for doing, you should ask them, have they spoken to the attorneys of any of the victims in order to add corroborating evidence, to give them inside information on the inner workings of these fears to help them acquire justice? The deposition of the 88-year-old retail billionaire, which resumed after the break, is occurring weeks after the DOJ released millions of additional files revealing new links between Epstein and major figures in business and politics. Wexner, the retired founder of Victoria's Secret's former parent company, L Brands, has faced intense scrutiny for years over his personal and financial relationships with Epstein. The latest document dump raises new questions about the extent of that relationship and how long it lasted, despite Wexner's claim that it was completely severed nearly 2 decades ago. He insists he neither knew about nor practiced in any criminal activity related to Epstein. I was naive, foolish, and gullible to put any trust in Jeffrey Epstein, Wexner said in a statement submitted to the Oversight Committee ahead of the deposition. And once again, this is not on face. This is kind of believable. Maybe not so much for Wexner. For Wexner, I don't know. Because you can tell by a lot of the communications that have been made public, Epstein not only went after vulnerable girls, he went after women that may have been powerful but did not have high self-esteem, were not socially literate. So yeah, you can kind of see how he was grooming all sides. Kind of. He was a con man, and while I was conned, I have done nothing wrong and I have nothing to hide, Wexner said. He was a con man. That's why I find it laughable that he had an issue, allegedly, when he found out that Trump was a con man. Epstein did not have the qualifications nor the education for any position that he held professionally outside of creep. He went on to call Epstein a master manipulator who lived a double life, insisting that any criminal activities were most carefully and fully hid from me. Again, to be clear, I never saw or heard about Epstein being in the company of a minor girl, Wexner said. Decades earlier, Wexner had given Epstein, a high school math teacher turned well-connected money manager, power of attorney over his finances. Wexner's had long been Epstein's only publicly known client. And that's what we have for now. We will continue down this road of updates later tonight at 9 p.m. Eastern. Till then.